Now we'll move on. Thanks again, John, to Ryan Makiola and Andre Ogle from ChainAPI. Pleased to have you guys here. Take it away.
Great. Thanks for the intro. So I'm going to jump straight into it so we don't run out of time. Hi, everyone. So basically, what is ChainAPI? So in essence, ChainAPI is an integration and deployment tool. And it's there to make it very easy for you to deploy and manage an Airnode or multiple Airnodes. And our target market is developers and API providers. So a developer to us is a user that looks at accessing off-chain data. So they might be creating a smart contract and they need multiple sources or markets. And ChainAPI's goal is to help developers connect with API providers for their off-chain data needs. And then the API providers will pretty much be users and businesses or companies that already have an existing web API and they are looking to bring their data on-chain so that Web3 developers can use their web APIs and expose their data on-chain. And pretty much our Chain-API plans to address this is by making it easy for API providers to integrate with their web APIs, with an Airnode, which in turn allows you to bring your web API. So why would you want to use ChainAPI? So ChainAPI basically gives you a step-by-step integration tool that allows you to use our development tool to easily integrate, deploy, and ultimately build your deployment files, which allows you to deploy an Airnode. It also helps you or gives you the functionality to easily manage an existing API integration. And in the near future, we're probably about halfway through the development at the moment for it, is to have the ability to add members to your workspace, and that'll allow you to manage and collaborate as a team your deployments and integrations. And then as for ChainAPI features, so there are no tokens required, which helps with tax compliance. It also makes your accounting a bit easier. And ultimately what that means is there's no need to deal with any cryptocurrencies. We provide a secure login using your MetaMask account. There is a step-by-step and easy integration tool, so you can integrate your existing Web2 APIs. And using the deployment tool, you can quite easily deploy an Airnode using your preferred cloud provider. So at the moment we support AWS, and probably within the next week or 2 weeks, we'll support GCP as well. It's also quite easy for you to manage your Airnode once deployed. And something that people don't think about, it's quite, I wanted to kind of highlight here, is that your running costs are based on your usage. So I know like AWS and GCP have a free tier. So it means that there's almost no cost, or it's free if your usage is quite low. And then as your usage increases, then your cost will scale with your usage. We also provide access control to your Airnode through the authorizer functionality. And like I alluded to in the previous slide, is using workspaces, you'll be able to add members to your workspace, and together you can collaborate and manage your integrations. As for the product roadmap for ChainAPI, so like I said, workspaces will be coming out quite soon. We're quite far in development for that. Another feature that we're looking at is the marketplace, which makes it easy, or basically connects developers and API providers. We're also looking at templates, which pretty much makes your API requests a lot easier, more convenient. Testing functionality, we plan on adding to it. So while you're doing your integration, you'll be able to test while setting up your integration, and also to do testing while you're doing your development, your deployment, not after. And something else that we're adding on top of that would be your ability to export integrations. So if you sign in using your one MetaMask account and you end up changing to a different account, you don't have to redo all your integrations. You'll be able to export it and transfer it to your new account, or if you just want to share integrations. And we also plan on enhancing the access control. Then, is ChainAPI secure? So in short, yes, it's secure. So we never handle your API keys. We don't store them. We also store the minimum amount of information required. So we don't store anything that we don't require. And we are GDPR compliant. And we actually use a third-party company, a consulting firm, for our GDPR compliance. And they also do audit us on a regular basis. And so where does ChainAPI fit in with API 3? So you guys might have seen the API 3 presentation earlier and wondering kind of where does ChainAPI fit in with API 3? So ChainAPI, the whole goal behind creating ChainAPI was that ChainAPI is there to make integrations and deployments within Airnode easier. And Airnode was created by API 3. And the other aim behind ChainAPI is to bring a marketplace where providers can have their data easily visible and accessible by users and developers. No, that went quite quick. Sorry, I'll try to rush through this to give Andre some time to give you guys a demo. So over to you, Andre.
There we go. All right. Thanks for the intro, Ryan. All right, so I'm going to try and walk through a brief overview of our ChainAPI platform. I'll be demoing on our beta version with the intent that we'll hopefully be releasing soon. So the first thing that you'll see is that we have our sort of standard web marketing pages where anyone who lands on ChainAPI will be able to sort of get an idea of what it is that we do, a bit about the product, that sort of stuff. They can, yeah, as I said, read about the product, they can read about the team, yeah, and then contact us if they have any questions. And one of the more, I guess, immediately obvious things is that we don't have email and password login. Instead, we have MetaMask login via Web3, signing a message. So there are several reasons for this, but the main one is that this allows us for future control of the Airnode. So the idea would be that a user would have their mnemonic phrase, which is linked to their account, and they would use that same mnemonic phrase when deploying an Airnode. And what this does is it allows us for future control through the ChainAPI platform. So let me go ahead and log in quickly. Sorry. So you'll see we have a nice user-friendly message asking the user to prove that they do in fact own this account. So I'll go ahead and sign. So once you log in, you are taken to the dashboard. And for at least for the beta version, we've been focusing solely on the API provider side of the equation, with the intent that the marketplace for developers will be built out later. So as you can see here, this is the landing page, starting on integrate, deploy, which I'll get to. So yeah, so the first thing that you'll notice is that I have an example API here. This is where your API cards would be listed as you sort of create integrations over time. Yeah, all new users are given an example pet store API. This is based on Swagger's semi-well-known pet store API. We've gone ahead and actually implemented this ourselves, that new users actually have an API to test against if they are looking to do so. But for now, I'll go ahead and show you the process of integrating a new API. So when you land on this wizard, you have to sort of capture some preliminary information about the API. This includes things such as the name, description, some categories, and all of this is useful for when we do implement the marketplace, helping developers to find your API or the right data for their right use case. But for now, I'll just enter some basic data so I can show you the rest of the wizard. This is a test, and if you do have an existing documentation site, you can also link to that here, which will help users in the future when it comes to the marketplace. So following on from that, you then are asked to capture a base URL. So this is where all requests are made to. So for this example, I'll just say ChainAPI.com. And then you're asked to capture security schemes. So APIs can either be open to the public, or more often than not, they are sort of behind some sort of authentication. And as Ryan mentioned in the slides, we never ask for your API key for several reasons, but most of all for trust and also for security. The user is at deploy time, when it comes time to deploy your Airnode, you are asked to enter your API keys, and you are always in control of that data. I'll just quickly show what this looks like. You can then sort of give an indication of what the name of the API key would be and where it is placed in the request. So once you've done that, you get taken to the endpoint capturing form. So this is where you would capture all of the details about your API. So all of the different endpoints, documentation around them, the parameters that they require, that sort of. So for this demo, I'll just show you an example. So if I have an endpoint 1, I can set a method for that. So Airnode currently supports get and post for request types, and then as other request types are added in the future, we'll support them. And then along with that, you can capture documentation. And again, this is to help developers in the future to be able to actually use your API. Then following on from that, you're asked to capture parameters about your API. So if this endpoint was to have some sort of parameters, you would be able to list them here. And one thing to note is that parameters in Airnode are whitelist only. So what that means is users will not be able to send any parameters they want to your API when making a request of the blockchain. What you have to do is you have to whitelist those parameters, and only those parameters are permitted when a request gets made. So I'll create one here. And you also notice that we have a value source column. And what this means is that you can either make the value fixed or you can make it user defined. So fixed would just be a hard-coded value that is always sent when a request gets made, or it can be user defined and the user is free to send their own values whenever they need to make a request. And then also at the bottom, just I'll touch on this briefly, is that we have this concept of reserve parameters. And this is taken from Airnode, where often you'll need to do some transformations before you can actually submit your response back to the blockchain. So this could be something like converting a string value into a bytes 32 values, which is compatible with EVM. Sorry, I'm feeling a bit rushed here, but yeah, so this is at a very brief level, the integration wizard. And I'll quickly show you what it looks like once you capture an API. So going back to the pet store, you'll see I've got 2 versions of my API, and each of them has a list of endpoints which actually exist and are testable. So once you've captured your API, you then can go through the deployment wizard. And what this does is it allows you to easily configure how you would like to deploy your Airnode, and then providing you everything that you need in order to get it up and running. So you'll see here, I have a deployment. It's called Brown Fox, and it's currently inactive. But I'll walk through the process of creating a new deployment. So you're also asked to capture a name for this deployment, and this is the name that will be used on your functions whenever you deploy. Airnode and ChainAPI try to target serverless, the serverless platform. As Ryan mentioned, this has many benefits, but this is not necessarily required. This is just something that we try and guide users towards. Users can then choose their preferred cloud provider, such as AWS, Google, their region, and what Airnode version they would like to have. Then, so as you can see here, you're able to capture numerous APIs as well as networks. I think that this is a unique selling point of Airnode. So for example, if I had many APIs, I would be able to serve them all via a single deployment. And similarly, I can also serve many networks from a single deployment, which is quite unique. And then adding to that, you can also add a number of providers as an additional level of redundancy. So for example, if I have a Ethereum provider on Ethereum mainnet who goes down regularly, I can configure a second Airnode, and that will have no additional consequences, and it will just serve as additional level of redundancy. So once I've done that, I can review, and once I'm happy, I can then finish my deployment, and I get given a single Docker command, which the users then asked to run and get the Airnode up and running. Yeah, 1 minute. Sorry, I'm almost done. As you can see here, I've got my new deployments on my deployment wizard, and it's now on my deployment listing, and it's now waiting for me to actually deploy my Airnode, which will then communicate with ChainAPI and let us know that it's up and running. At which point you're then able to manage and get notified if there are any issues with your deployment. Yeah, so sorry, that's at a very high level what ChainAPI is about. We provide additional tools to sort of monitor and get notified when there are issues with the deployment. You can see here, for example, I've got some notifications about the Brown Fox deployment that timed out, and I can then get that via email. So I know that something needs action on my part. And this can all be controlled by the account settings page, where users can get sort of standard controls in their account. And I think I'm about up for time, so I'm going to hand it back to Ryan quickly. We can wrap up. I can just figure this out.
Any last word, Ryan? You're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Andre. Almost didn't unmute myself. So yeah, maybe just to quickly wrap it up with all that said, we are going to be holding a beta next week. So if you do have a API that you'd like to integrate and have a look at both ChainAPI and deploy your own Airnode, there is a form at the second last slide that you can complete and request access to the beta, but it won't be long until we actually launch. And the very last slide is just the team behind ChainAPI if you want to have a look. And Andre and I will stick around for questions after this.
Great. Thank you very much. And as a reminder to everybody here, all the speakers will be in the exhibit hall. So if you have questions, please visit the exhibit hall and have a nice chat.